Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another episode of Luke Reacts. This week, I am reacting to elections in Europe. It seems that last week, in both the UK and France, there were elections, and they didn't quite go as many had thought. Well, some had thought, but not others, right? So basically, let me back up, give some context. So on July 4th, ironically, there was big elections in the UK. Former, as former a former colony of Britain. Our we celebrated Independence Day, and they went to the polls. And the Labour Party, which had been out of they had been very weak for many years, destroyed. I mean, destroyed the Tories, which was the Conservative Party of the UK. Now, a little bit also context is that Labour is like the left, and the Conservatives is you might imagine with a name like Conservative that they would be conservative, but they're not. They're kind of they're very centrist. They had a lot of things that they promoted that would outrage conservatives in America. And so a lot of people in America who recognized and looked at the conservatives of the UK were like, well, yeah, they're not conservative. Uh, what happened was there was a new party formed called Reform. And they were, you could say they were real conservatives like you would expect. If you're a conservative in America, or if you don't like conservatives in America, they would be that conservative, right? Like that kind of conservative. What you get is, so you had this kind of, you had Labor, which was left. Then you had the Tories or the conservatives, which are very centrist, very in the middle, actually. And then you had a new party that formed on the right. And that was really the kind of the new makeup of elections in the UK. And the conservatives got destroyed. They got destroyed really over the issue of the conservative, like let's say the right wing of the UK's vote split. It split between the conservatives and this new Reform Party. The Reform Party actually ended up getting significantly more votes. But because of the way that the vote structure was, and the way the parties and where the districts are, et cetera, they actually only ended up with 4 seats, even though they got 4 million votes. They actually got more votes than Labor did, but they ended up with only 4 seats. And that's really the result of the way that the map is laid out. It's like what would happen if America didn't have electoral college. It's like the popular vote, and there's electoral college. We got that whole system, right? Anyways, the Labor had for many years been known to be super anti-Semitic. There's this guy named Jeremy Corbyn who is he led Labor for a while, and the dude is a raging anti-Semite. Besties with Hezbollah, besties with Hamas, and the guy was a piece of work. He got booted out of Labor because he was such an anti-Semite. Labor is like, no. And it would be like, I don't know, Ilhan Omar getting booted out of the Democratic Party and then running as an independent and still winning her seat. That's what that would be like. And because he did win, he won a seat as an independent. And so he is back in the government. So Jeremy Corbyn, here's looking at you, anti-Semite. We'll keep an eye on you. But Labor won big. And you had, it's going to really change what happens in the UK vis-a-vis the rest of the world, particularly as it relates to Israel. Several areas. One is the ICC, which is the International Criminal Court, has put out a warrant for Netanyahu, and actually also for Sinwar, who is the the guy running Hamas in Gaza, somewhere in a tunnel in the underground, like a rat. He is, um, and you have so you have the ICC has arrest warrants, and the UK under the Conservative Party was not going to enforce. Actually, they were pushing back at the ICC for even considering such a thing. The new party, not so much going to do that. And then you have this. There's this great picture, and I'll throw it up on here. But you have the new person who is uh, they call it like the Secretary of State kind of person. She's the new Lord Chancellor and Secretary of State for Justice. I got this picture here. She's got a Free Palestine. She's an activist. She looks like she's wearing Deadpool outfit, but I think it's just her outfit. But she kind of does look, you know, minus the mask. It's very Deadpool like. Um, anyways, she is a activist. So it's clear that the direction that the UK is going to go is more towards favoring the Palestinians. Uh, we'll see how much it plays into the war in Gaza pretty quick here, because I think that it's Gaza's so small. That war's got to be over soon. We're running out of land, man. And so, but the UK seems to be in like really turning a track in will be more aggressively against Israel, more favorable towards the Palestinians. They will also this whole international criminal court thing is a big deal. And then the other thing that happens is that there was really one of the big sticking points to this whole thing, and I'll get into this a lot later, is immigration, and particularly the Islamic immigration has been a big issue in the UK, and also it's been a big issue in the rest of Europe as well. But it's been a big issue in the UK, and it's one of the things that forced this establishment of a new right-wing party, because the center party was like, it was all talk, but anytime there was an effort to try and limit the immigrants coming in, the illegal immigrants coming in, or call out the Muslims who were causing a lot of violence, it seemed like they were given a pass. Like there was this two-tier justice system, two-tier police system, where uh, Brits who were carrying British flags would get arrested at you know um, pro Hamas rallies because they were opposed to what the pro Hamas people were saying. Right? It's like a weird. It's been weird. So this new Reform Party came out. They were very much on against this the illegal immigration. Wanted to be much stronger about it. There was a plan to to um, to deport illegal immigrants to Rwanda. Uh, that for whatever reason, Rwanda seems to be a place people like to countries trying to figure out how do we deport people back to an area. Rwanda is like I think Rwanda has this idea that, and it's not a bad idea actually. They can make some money off of the rest of the world by taking their deportees. And there's enough land in Rwanda, and maybe because according to some of these laws in places like Britain, the UK, and Sweden, etc., um, people can't be deported back to certain countries, particularly if those countries are active war zones, or it just makes it really difficult to port people back to where they're from if there's something going on. I think there's some laws there that prevent that kind of thing. So Rwanda was like a test case in this. And so then you had the basically the Rwanda plan is dead. And one of the people who came out in support of the fact that the Rwanda plan is dead is the Archbishop of Canterbury. And why did the Archbishop of Canterbury come out? Well, because he's really into asylum seekers. And again, I want to get into this a little bit later, but there is this thing in not only in Europe, but in America, where you have Christian leaders who the only verse it seems they know is welcome the stranger when it comes to immigration. And they seem to be so like living in fantasy land about what it means to welcome the stranger. What if that stranger uh and I don't know, 3, 4 million of his friends decide to come? And what if their ideology is fundamentally opposed to yours? Do you just welcome the stranger? I don't even think that's what welcome the stranger meant when it was said welcome the stranger. And welcome the stranger comes out of the Bible, by the way. So you got this. So yeah, immigration was a big deal in the UK. Labor took over. Labor has had a long history of having some problematic anti-Semites within them. Uh, the good thing for Israel and the Jews of the UK is the wife of the new prime minister is Jewish and actually like practicing Jewish. And so the potential that there'll be a Shabbat every Friday night at 10 Downing Street. That could happen. And the Labor has been trying, and the new leadership of Labor has been trying to distance itself from its reputation as being a very anti-Semitic party. We'll see. We'll see how that plays out. I'm suspicious because one of the things the Labor Party struggled with big time is they lost kind of the middle. They lost the working class, and were kind of the party of the crazies, right? The weirdos. I think at the uh, celebration of the new prime minister's where he was declared that he won. There was a dude dressed as a furry in the front row. Okay, that's like the picture of, you could say, old Labor Party, because that was like it was all for it was like all furries and Islamists, which strangely enough seems to be what you see when you see the protests in like Washington Square in New York too. But that aside, all right. So the UK elections, I don't think they're going to go well for Israel. For it's a new left wing party got in. The right is divided. Labor, like the new Reform Party, only got 4 seats. But we'll see. We'll see. Elections in the UK come when if Parliament falls apart. But it'll be a few years. We'll see. Then, and not to be outdone, there was elections in France. Now, this was a surprise because I'm going to post this map up. Be posted a bit next to me here. Is what there's a party of a woman named Marie Le Pen, and Marie Le Pen's party was in the European parliamentary elections, won like destroyed everybody else completely in France. Like, there's this map of it. It's a total landslide. The whole country, all the districts that voted for the European Parliament voted for her party. And the thing is that Le Pen's party is considered every time it's in the news, American news, European news, British news, every time it's mentioned in the news, it's a far right party. It is not a far right party. Okay. Far right and far left, right and left, center, all those things are really depend on where you're standing, don't they? Right? Because if you are on the left and you look at this other party, you're like, oh, that's a far right party because it's the far right to you, right? Well, it's not the far right to me. There is a far right to me, but maybe it's just right. Or maybe you're on the right and you're looking at, I mean, here's how I would frame it as, in America, right? You got the squad. And I would say, so I'm going to be Luke Moon is in the center. How's this play out, right? Luke Moon's in the center. So I got the squad, which is like Ilan Omar, Rashid Tlaib, all those people, right? They're on the far left. Okay. Democratic Socialist America. They hate Israel. They, hate America, I would say. Right. I would say they're far left. And then you get the left, which is like your normal Democrats, varying kinds, whatever. And then you got like there was this there was this bill that passed the House yesterday that was, basically mandating. It was to require proof of citizenship to vote in America for federal elections. And all the Republicans voted against it. All the Republicans voted for it. 5 Democrats voted for it. Now, I would say those 5 Democrats would be centrist, right? Because they're calling balls and strikes. Just as when there's stuff that Republicans will vote for that are on the left, they're centrist as well. Okay, there's a center. According to me, again, this is all where I'm standing. I'm determining what center, right, and left, and far right, far left is. Then you get the right, and then you got the far right. In the far right, there's some, is the neo-Nazis, the feds that march in like Nashville. Just kidding. Well, I'm not. They might be feds. It might not be. I don't know, but they look like feds. But you get the Marjorie Taylor Greene. If I meet her one day, she'll probably give me crap for this, but I'd call her far right. I certainly would call like Nick Fuentes and Candace Owen far right at this point. They have completely lost their, well, Nick Fuentes has been a neo-Nazi for a while. Candace is like quickly deciding that she wants to be the queen of that space. So you got that, right? All right. So back to France. So Marie Le Pen's party always gets labeled far right. It is not. It is right. It's like Republicans in the United States, or conservatives in the United States. And Macron, who is the current president, his party is an actual like centrist party. And then you have the communists and socialists, which are on the left, and they're also off labeled far left. Again, it depends on the labels are super unhelpful for me. Right and left is fine, but far right, far left is a bit much. Anyways, there was snap elections called, and there wasn't a ton of time to prepare for them, but they were called because Marie Le Pen's party did so well in the European elections, the European Parliament elections, like just destroyed every other party in France. So she did so good. And so it scared Macron's party a bit. And so there was put up elections. The day before the elections happened, or maybe even the day of, Macron polled 200 of his candidates off the ballot, which basically got rid of the middle. And so people were then left with a choice between Marie Le Pen's party and the leftist party, which is communist and Marxist, socialist. They like actually cleaned up. It was very unexpected, but it was very, I mean, I guess it was a good tactical move if you're on the left and you want to keep, you're trying to avoid Marie Le Pen's party. Again, immigration was a big factor in that election, huge factor, actually probably the biggest factor in that election, because there's a lot of frustrated people in France. Like, I was talking to somebody, was telling me they're going to France. So, well, how's your Arabic? They looked at me funny, and then they laughed because they knew what I know, right? That if you get off the train uh, in in France, in Paris, uh, you only hear Arabic. There's there's a lot of places. It's like going to Miami and not knowing, and like you just walking around and everybody speaking Spanish. And that's what Paris is for it, it's everybody speaking Arabic. Um, and so immigration was a big deal in that one. Now, Marie Le Pen is is has been fighting the reputation of her last name for as long, almost as long as I can remember, at least a decade, maybe 15 years, because her father, Marie Le Pen's father, was a a proper neo-Nazi. He was really not a good guy, and but she has been a much better politician, much more much more clear about the line between what is appropriate concern for your nation and your national identity, and xenophobic kind of I, really the line to me between let's call it like xenophobia, immigrant hatred or whatever, and uh having a clear-eyed view is actually, do the people that you're bringing into your country first, are they coming in numbers that can assimilate? Because assimilation is the value, right? If a person comes into your nation and they don't want to adopt the values, the identity, the aspirations, the goals, the hopes and dreams, and the way the nation describes itself, they don't want to participate in that. Uh, they don't want to adopt the myths of the nation. Then they're not the they shouldn't be there. Go somewhere where you feel like you can identify with the myths of your nation. But if that's not what you're willing to do, then don't. And it should be, to me, it also should be legal. I'm a huge fan, actually, of legal immigration. I am. Uh, I think we have a lot of opportunity here in America. Immigrants provide are very oftentimes, and I would say through legal immigration, are oftentimes very driven, motivated. When I lived in Washington, D.C., I was the only white guy in my apartment complex, and everybody else was like an immigrant from Ethiopia, Eritrea, Egypt, various places in South America, in various places in Asia. The playground signs were in English, Spanish, and Vietnamese, because there were so many Vietnamese in my apartment complex. And the fathers were taxi drivers, the mothers were housekeepers. Kids would come home from school and they would be doing their homework until like 6 or 7 o'clock at night. Very committed to making sure that their kids were going um, to pick the better path for America. All of them were legal immigrants. Um, what you don't have, but you don't have that now. All the time, you got so many illegal immigrants coming into America, coming into UK, coming into France. It's it's overwhelming the system, and there's not the assimilation taking place. So you had this reputation of Marie Le Pen's party was that it was a she had to deal with the legacy of her father's name, um, but she had done a good job, and she had been clear about, listen, we are going to make a distinction between people who want to be like French in France and adopt our values, our way of life, our system, and those who want to overturn it. That was the clarity that she brought, and um, she did really well. She did really well, but because Macron had basically gamed the or basically pulled his members off the ballot, it meant that people had a choice between let's call it they had a choice between the far right and far left, and they picked the far left. It was pretty shocking. I thought she was going to actually win. I've been following her for a long time, um, and it was I'd say there's a big setback actually for France. It's going to because the let's see what I'll just give you some examples of what has come out since then. Okay, so you now have an Antifa member of parliament for France, a guy who's been charged with beating up a 15-year-old Jewish boy is now a member of parliament. The new president, when he gets sworn in, will have said that we will recognize the state of Palestine. They are going to lower um, the retirement age to 60 from 67 or 65, something like that. They are going to I read yesterday they want to put a 90% tax on anybody making over 400,000 pounds a year. Not, I mean, 400,000 euros a year, which is insane and dumb. The U.S. tried that one time, if you don't know, and it didn't work. It never works. It's people figure out a way to not spend all their time working for the government when they're not actually taking a paycheck from the government. I get to spend a third of my time or maybe half my time working for the government, and they don't pay me, but and I get bad roads. What else did they have pretty aggressively come out. They're anti-Israel. One of my favorites, and I'll post this up as well, is Rashid Tlaib, who was congratulating the left in France for winning. Quote tweeted this video of the winners. They were flying. There was flags in this video. Of the flags, 10 are actually no. Let's say there are 10 flags in the video. 2 of which are French flags, 8 of which are Palestinian flags, and they're on the main statue in Paris, and they're spray painting it with they're tagging it with slogans and stuff. That is basically, not only is it's hilarious because it's a member of the squad congratulating them on that, but it's just it's a perfect picture of what lies before France, and it'll be another 3 years before elections happen. It will be a disaster. Socialism doesn't work, never works, never has worked, and it doesn't work, especially when you have it works in places where you have other sources of income or a national cohesion that values that. Okay, the reason it works the reason that Scandinavia is but what about Scandinavia, Luke? All right, well, first of all, Scandinavia, huge bunch of land, not a lot of people, which is very helpful because you have industries like mining, forestry, oil, etc., which are they provide income for the nation that can then be dispersed among all the people in that, right? So again, if you live in Alaska, you get a royalty check every year for from the basically from the oil, because it's like, okay, we recognize it's cold and dark and lonely here in Alaska, but listen, we'll give you $1,400 because someone up north there is mining or drilling for oil, right? That's the way it works. Okay, so it works in a place like Scandinavia because of that, but it doesn't work in as those places like Sweden or Norway or Denmark stop being Norwegian, Swedish, or Danish. It begins to break down, right? Because people from other countries come in that don't have the same values, that don't have the same work ethic, that don't have the same view towards social cohesion that the people who are there before did, and it begins to fail. It fails because it's an inefficient system, right? So you have the you have a lot of changes coming to France because of this election, and again, it's it's likely that the ICC, with International Criminal Court, if Netanyahu flies through France, that he would be arrested. And he would be arrested because of this new leader in France. You also have the head rabbi of France has said there's no future for Jews in France. I'm paraphrasing, but he basically said that. And as of 2 days ago, there were already 2,000 Jews who had started the application to make Aliyah to Israel. Um, and it, just an aside here, the Jews of Europe are seeing these mass demonstrations of pro-Hamas people on the streets in the major cities of Europe, and they don't feel safe. And there's when they're seen to be Jewish, they're saying like, get out of here, go back to, and it's actually often like go back to Poland, as if they're from Poland, right? And they're also like, so where are they going to go? Are they going to go to America? No, because America doesn't do that. They're going to go to the place where they're from, which is the land of Israel. But there's big outcry this week about the expansion of settlements in Judea and Samaria. But the expansion of settlements in Judea and Samaria is a direct result of what is happening in the rest of the world. You have the rest of the world driving the Jews out of their nation. There's only like 5,000 Jews left in Denmark. I met a guy who was the kind of the head of the Danish Jewish community, and he was like, yeah, there's no future for us in Denmark. And so it's really a matter of like when and how people are going to get out. And that's sad to me. That's tragic, because what it will lead to is what happens every time the Jews are driven from a place. It actually does worse, because the blessing of God comes off of that nation. And so, there is I don't talk about the end times much, but I don't know that I have a real cohesive view of the end times. If you ever get me down somewhere and put a couple beers in me and ask me about the end times, I'll probably say, I don't know, but I can see a scenario in which, there is this picture where all the nations come and surround Israel, and that's when God saves it. And you can almost see how that could happen by all the Jews being driven from Denmark and France and Germany and all they already got a lot kicked out of Poland and like Italy, et cetera. And where are they going to go? They all go back to the land. And it's not like they all can move into Tel Aviv, the strip of the coast, the Mediterranean. It's not enough land there for all the people, all the Jews of the world to live in Tel Aviv. And so where are they going to live? They're going to live in settlements. Where? In Judea and Samaria. Why? Because that's where the Jews come from. Okay? That's laying that out there, y'all. Okay. So, elections in France, terrible. Jews are now leaving. Another Jewish member of parliament from France was like, we had a good run here, guys, but we're out. Again, that was a major paraphrase. Long. I'll post it up. But listen, it's going to be a real Europe is going to change based upon what has happened in the last 2 weeks, pretty significantly, I think. All right, so now I'm going to get to some. Let me just talk a little bit about this whole problem of immigration, because it is a problem, and particularly Muslim immigration, because what you have going on is a pretty significant influx of Islamists into these countries of France, the UK, Germany, Sweden, United States, Canada, etc. I mean, there was a video I saw yesterday coming out of Ottawa, Canada. There's this whole thing that's starting to happen in Canada where lots of Muslim men come and block the street. I don't know why it took forever to figure out what the word was. It's one of those days, guys. They block the street, and then they do their prayer towards Mecca or whatever. But by hundreds of them, sometimes thousands of them. And in order to just kind of, what is that? What is that? Why are they doing that? It's a show of force. And there's lots and lots of examples of where you have Muslim men who are saying, we're going to take over. We're going to take your women. We're going to drive you out. We are going to be in charge. You have the adoption of Sharia law courts in Canada. You have this last week, KFC decided that all the chickens sold at KFC in Canada would be halal, and that they would no longer serve any pork products at KFC. And so that's, one could say that's out of deference because they want to make money, which is probably true. But it signals something, doesn't it? And the problem is what you have is that, and this is something that's happening kind of globally almost. You have these kind of, to use the book of Samuel Huntington, clash of civilizations. And the clash of civilizations is where you have the civilization of the West, which is Christian or Catholic. Protestant or Catholic, those are two separate civilizations almost, being confronted by Islamic civilization. And the thing is, everywhere where Islam borders some other nation, there is such a thing as the bloody borders of Islam. I could list them off to you. And everywhere there's an Islamic majority, the neighbors, whoever borders them is in trouble in some kind of, there's terrorism. You're talking, you obviously Europe, obviously look at the regular killing of Nigerians, Nigerian Christians, the destruction of Nigerian churches in northern Nigeria. There's the border between Islamic Africa and either the Christian or animist Africa is a bloody mess, and that's reality. Okay. Um, how about southern Thailand? You probably don't hear that much, but there's Islamic troubles there. Southern Philippines, one of the islands of the Philippines in the south, it's mostly Islamic, and there's trouble there. Um, you know, there was, well, it hasn't been for a while, but Chechen War, Chechnya and Russia. Russia, I mean, there was Dagestan. It was a theater a couple of weeks ago that was taken over by Islamists. A bunch of people were killed. Um, uh, yeah, I could keep going. Bloody borders of Islam. And so what happens when you have this rise of Islamist uh, expansion into places like Western Europe, United States, Canada, etc. What you're having here is a strong cultural identity running into one that is confused. And I would say that the West is confused about who it is. The West doesn't know who it is. The West doesn't know that it is like it is used this analogy 100 times, and I attribute it to Oz Guinness. He called us a cut flower generation, which means that like we're flowers in a vase. We've lost our root. We're disconnected from anything. And as a result, like we don't know, we're aimless, right? Like you know, what ISIS did a great job of recruiting men from Europe by saying, come and die for us. Come and die for Islam. Come and die for a cause. Come and die for Allah, right? And what is the mantra coming out of the West in terms of like in media, in social media, in the songs, in the movies, and what like the all the cultural and almost like a bunch of the political push coming out of the West is, when are you going to have your next orgasm? There's an obsession with sex, an obsession with like fulfilling your most base desire. You know, you want to dress up like a dog and pant and, be drug around half naked through the streets of New York. Cool, cool. We will celebrate you. Well, like, and we will call you by whatever you think you are. Like, that's not like Islam, which knows who it is, comes into that. It's like it rolls over it. And it's weird that you have this unity now of it was of like queers for Palestine marching in here in New York, and it's if those queers go to Palestine, they'd be thrown off buildings. It doesn't make any sense, but it doesn't have to make sense, because one of the things that's happening is this conquering of the queers for Palestine. They will change. They will change. They will submit to Allah. They will, because they're not strong enough to resist it. They're like they're in fancy land already, and either they'll die or they will submit to it. And so, who's going to resist? Who's going to resist? Well, the problem is that there's a the two-tiered police system, the two-tiered, what appears to be a two-tier police system. I won't say there is. It appears that way. I daily, multiple times a day, have tweets in my feed, or X's or whatever they call them these days, of people who are challenging the pro Hamas protests, that are rallies, either wearing there was one yesterday where there was a kid wearing there was a pro-Hamas rally in the UK. There's a kid wearing an Israeli flag and a sign connecting Hamas to the KKK. Guess who got arrested? The kid with the sign, right? Um, I hadn't heard much of. I had heard by reputation about this guy in the UK named Tommy Robinson. He got interviewed this last week by Jordan Peterson, and he started this group called the English Defense League, um, which was it was a lot of like bully boy, soccer football kids who were like upset by what they had seen in their town by the Islamists, right? That's how it kind of started. Um, but what he did was he exposed the fact that there was all these grooming gangs happening in the UK. That you would have things like, a town would have 1,400 rape cases, and there would be 250 perpetrators of the 1,400 rapes, and only 11 would be arrested. And the rest are like, oh, it's because, and they were all like Islamic. And he exposed all that. And man, the world hates that guy. But here's the thing: what I found out was that as I listened to this, is he's from Luton. Okay, and Luton in the UK is a very diverse working class town. It used to have there was a GM factory in Luton and some other industry in Luton, and all that went away in the 80s and the 90s. It became a very depressed town. And there's I remember, so back when I was towards the end of my missionary life, I was very involved in reconciliation initiatives all over the place. And one of my mentors in that space ended up leaving the mission, leaving YWAM, and going to work for a church in Luton, the very place where Tommy Robinson was from. And the church, what Tommy Robinson was bothered by was the Islamists in his town. And it turns out that Luton is one of the centers for Islamism, like the Islamist ideology. We're not talking, again, I'm not talking about Muslims that I meet all the time that are they just want a better life for their kids and their family. They're not out to spread the ummah. They just want to be good Muslims, faithful, but they're not trying to, like, they want to be like everybody else. They want to be assimilate in the best way, right? Bring their culture, bring their feature, but not trying to like make everybody else be them. Okay, not making everybody wear burqas and or hijabs and mandating everybody halal. Okay, not that kind. What you get, but so you have this. It was strange to listen to this interview, because I remember how much my mentor on reconciliation stuff like detested Tommy Robinson and what Tommy Robinson was doing. But I never knew. I never heard Tommy Robinson's story until yesterday, actually. And I realized that there is this that my friend, my mentor, was on the side of the Islamists as a Christian, because he was opposed to he would always talk about how the fact that the British Empire had caused so much problems in the world and they needed to repent of that. And so he'd go around and do all these acts of repentance, and yet not the thing was, he would not defend his own nation, his own people against the Islamists. Instead, he would welcome them, as in welcoming the stranger. one of these days I'm gonna probably write an article on it. It's like basically, I'll call it the invasion in Jesus' name, because you have this impulse again by Christians. There are I meet them all the time. I like uh, some of my dearest friends are involved in this stuff in Europe, where they like, oh, we go and we help refugees. A lot of there's a ton of Christian NGOs. Christian, air quotes Christian. I don't know how significantly Christian they are, but they're motivated that way, who are facilitating people coming into Europe. They're facilitating the boat loads from um, from like Libya and stuff. That it's happening in the United States too. On the border, the southern border of the United States, there's a lot of Christian organizations down there that are doing immigration services, welcoming this, and they're all motivated by this idea of welcoming the stranger. It's such a, but it's such a twisted. They twist that under the understand, twist the understanding of that passage, or twist the idea that there is a difference between like the book of Ruth, where Naomi and Ruth are destitute in Moab, and they end up in Bethlehem, actually, or just outside Bethlehem, and they are gleaning the fields, which means that like after the harvest has happened. This is in the Old Testament. The Israelites were told not to cut the edges of your field, and and leave food for the poor, so that they can eat too. And so you would have a harvest. People harvest by hand, obviously, and then just grab the bunches. If a stalk of wheat falls as you're doing that, don't pick it up. That's for the poor. So Naomi and Ruth are working in Boaz's field, right? And doing the gleaning. And Ruth and, Boaz gets an eye for Ruth, and the whole story. Read about it in the Bible. It's a good story. You can read it in a less than an hour. Anyways, that's in my mind. I know that's what people are thinking. Oh, we're just we're being like Boaz, welcoming Naomi and Ruth. Well, it's like you're Boaz welcoming Naomi and Ruth and a million other people in your town. Be like, well, no, we're welcoming the stranger. No, you're welcoming. You're not actually, because the expectation of the stranger was that the stranger assimilate and take on the culture and participate in the community. That was the expectation. That's not what's happening. And so all of the federally funded refugee resettlement organizations in the United States, with the exception of one, are all like designated Christian. You have Catholic Charities, you have World Relief, you have Lutheran Social Services, et cetera, et cetera. The one that's not Christian, I think it's Jewish, actually. But it's like this. And the problem is, what you're having is it's destabilizing. It's destabilizing the community, because the community can't keep itself together, because it can't assimilate the newcomers fast enough. And that's where you have, that's where we're tearing each other apart. We're going to tear each other apart. And if, the problem is, it seems that a lot of governments seem to be on the side of self-destruction of their own community for political gain or for financial gain. I have no idea, or maybe both. It is going to cause some problems, and this it is likely that this To quote the title of a movie, there will be blood. I don't want it. I don't want it. I think it's, again, I'm committed to welcoming the stranger, in welcoming them into the community legally as a government, because the government, I think, has a duty to protect its citizens. I'll tell you what. I mean, I'll give you one other example, and I'm gonna be done here, folks, soon. Is I don't order like DoorDash and Grubhub in New York City, because I don't want to participate in the exploitation of people. And that's what I believe is happening when you order food and have it delivered to you in New York City, because the people who are delivering that food to you are illegal immigrants into the United States. They rent or they buy or are given electric bicycles that they ride the wrong way down roads, very dangerous, to deliver somebody some food. And it's usually like cheap food, it costs you 20, 15, 20 bucks in New York. But if something happens to them, like let's say they get hit because they're going down the wrong direction, they break their leg, they have no recourse. They're not like, they're here legally, and so they won't. They basically they suddenly can't work. They're thrown on Medicaid. They suffer. They're gonna suffer, and they can't. If that was a legal immigrant doing that same thing, he might be on Medicaid, but he would have insurance. He would have there is a safety net in America for American citizens and immigrants. Maybe I live in fantasy land, but I don't want to participate in the exploitation of people, and I think that's what's happening all the time in cities around America, where we have allowed this kind of thing to take place. There's a map I will throw up here from Pew from 2017 showing the percentage of Muslim immigrants in various countries of Europe by 2050. So we're talking 26 years from now. And in some places, it's more than 30%. Those countries will be Islamic. They will be Islamic countries, and the blonde-haired women of Sweden will, you won't see the hair anymore because they'll be under a hijab, and I think that's sad. Actually, I do. So no doubt, my rambling over the last several minutes will have irritated a good number of people. I'm happy to read your comments in the comments section of the YouTube video, but you gotta like and subscribe, because that really does help me. I really hope that you like this one. I really hope you watch this one. Also, we are donor supported here at the Philos Project. That's how we do everything. We are a nonprofit. We are focused on promoting positive Christian engagement. That means Philos means friend. We're trying to find friends and influence people, right? And I would really love it if you would support the Philos Project. Your gift of $25 a month goes a long ways, I'm telling you. So please like, subscribe, and donate to this video and these efforts that we do at the Philos Project. Thank you very much, and I will see you